Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters. Thanks for standing by as we deal with technical difficulties. But Amnesiac versus Fr0zen are moments away from getting started here. It's the Hunter versus the Paladin, the only match that we have that doesn't feature a mage. You know, I think it'll be interesting to see either of these classes get a win on the board. And it's funny because when I feel like these classes are being brought, they're trying to beat other mages, for example, but they happen to line against each other. A little bit unfortunate, or maybe just kind of amusing based off what you see the format end up entailing, right? Specialist or single deck format tends to lend itself towards these situations.
Yeah, it does. It's
Let's take a look at Fr0zen's deck list as TJ is moments away from passing away.
Woo!
And I'll have to solo cast this.
Oh man, what was that, Dan?
Well, not exactly sure, but I'm glad that you made it, buddy. So here's the deck list from Fr0zen. He has the Elven Arch, the Blessing of Wisdom, the Soup Vendor. For people who don't know, Soup Vendor is a 2-mana 1/4 that if you restore 3 health, draw a card. So it's definitely another part of that card engine source, which I think is a really crafty inclusion because I was thinking about ways to replace the Blitzo Corsair that people were playing. I was like, maybe Acolyte of Pain. But Acolyte still is not that great. But Acolyte of Pain works well with Elven Archer. So maybe there's something there. In the meantime, you can see that he has only one Shrink Ray, but his secondary and tertiary decks are also going to be helpful if he needs to go up against specific archetypes. Now, Amnesiac, his Hunter deck, on the other hand, pretty straightforward run-of-the-mill. Amnesiac's not a player that usually includes super fancy tech unless he's 100% confident in it. He's just playing good stuff. But his, more fancy level tech is his Rat Trap. That's a nod to the mages because mages are just going to combo like crazy. So hopefully the Rat Trap can help you there.
Yeah, Rat Trap. It doesn't matter. A lot of times when you place a secret in your deck, you want to put multiple secrets to force your opponent to try and play around it or have that level of mind games. But Rat Trap's just so good on its own because your opponent knows they have a Rat Trap. So it either forces them to give you a 6/6, which Mage has a tough time not doing in the early game,
right?
Or forcing them to play only 2 cards a turn, which is very restrictive for a lot of classes nowadays, Mage specifically. So it is kind of a weird matchup. I don't think either of these players expected to face the other deck, as you mentioned. I don't think Fr0zen was expecting many Hunters, and I don't think Amnesiac was expecting Holy Wrath Paladin.
Yeah.
That's why I said it early on the broadcast. I'm excited for this one because it's a matchup that you don't get to see very often.
Yeah, I do think that Amnesiac does get the edge because of how aggressive the Hunter can be compared to the Paladin. So I'm anticipating him to be the favored player in this position. However, Fr0zen does have some fancy stuff, to say the least. And also, I think Holy Wrath Paladin has all the tools to be a successful combo deck in this metagame. Which was definitely something that people were debating. There's so much disruption printed in the Rise of Shadows. You're talking about Unseen Saboteur, you're talking about Hecklebot, and all these other ways to mess with people's combos that people thought combo decks were just going to completely die out going into Rise of Shadows. And yet there's still a couple of combo decks here and there that are still viable.
And that's why I love Grandmasters, because it's not like a single big event where you bring a lineup or you bring a deck and you have to go through the whole event with that deck. You change decks each week. So one week, if you make a meta call, you can bring kind of an off-the-wall combo deck that may not work in most cases, that will work in Grandmasters because it's a much smaller sample size of decks. So you're only playing against 2 opponents. And then you could get rid of it and play a different deck next week. So that's why it's kind of cool, and hopefully this, makes us see more diversity. We see more diversity this week. Last week was 13 Warriors. This week is a lot of mages, but we're also seeing Hunters. We're seeing Warriors. We're seeing Rogues. We're seeing Paladins. Hunters.
Shaman.
Lions and Bears.
And Beats. And Battlestar Galactica.
With just 5 references in one sentence. Well done, Dan. Well done. Michael!
Very funny. Michael!
Quickly. I wonder.
Spring Paw on 1. Not really much here for Amnesiac to do except hopefully pump up his scavenging hyena. wonder if Amnesiac just wants to play it on curve here. There's not too much that Fr0zen can do to punish it. His way to answer it in the coming turns would be Consecration and Choose over Champion. Alternatively, could also do a Wild Pyromancer plus Blessing of Wisdom. Does seem kind of like a waste. Amnesiac did pick up Rat Trap. But Rat Trap's not exactly development on the board either. And like in the later stages of the game is where Rat Trap becomes much better. At least versus Paladin.
Well, with the coin, Rat Trap's, with your opponent having the coin, Rat Trap ups in value. Because if your opponent plays card, coin, card, then Rat Trap activates. It's fair.
This is the only secret from the Hunter. Fr0zen drawing the Crystology, trying to find other ways to pick apart the board and increase his options.
He can make it awkward with Wild Pyromancer. If you just set up the Scavenging and the links here.
Yeah, but then Coin Consecration's still a problem.
Yep, that's a very good point.
Still Truce over Champion is on the back of his mind. Not even Truce over Champion, it could be Hammer of Wrath. There's 2 copies of Hammer of Wrath, Coin Hammer of Wrath.
Yeah, the Consecration and Truce over Champions are both 1-ubs, but like you said, Hammer of Wrath is a 2-ub, so it's punished by a lot. But honestly, can you afford to give him that much time?
I think so. Hunter is the deck that has explosive late game power as well. Second Hyena. Okay, so maybe this allows you to play the first Hyena and feel good about it. Unleash the Beast feels very reactive, and a lot of times Fr0zen's not going to be playing a lot of minions onto the board unless it's like a Soup Vendor or an Acolyte that you want to rush down. Okay.
You can play Unleash the Beast as a proactive tool, though.
That's true. It just has a 5/5.
Yeah.
I guess I was like looking at the context of having 2 Spring Paw types cards in your hand and then having Scavenging Hyena number 2. Fr0zen playing Wild Pyromancer Coin into a minion will activate the Rat Trap, so Fr0zen actually should just hero power in this spot. Nicely done.
Still a nice board setup.
Right, but then Amnesiac now gets the Hyena, which means that Fr0zen only can have Choose over Champion to answer this, unless he has something else that I'm not thinking of. So, I wonder if this was like completely mapped out from Amnesiac to like understand his opponent might counter with Pyromancer Coin. And then, if so, that's fairly brilliant. Because now he has the initiative.
Yeah, very smart play. And even if he just gets to attack once with the Scavenging Hyena, that's 6 damage. Very crucial.
Yeah, Fr0zen's just willing to take that damage to hopefully kill it. Next turn, Dire Frenzy off the top. Big time draw here for the young Savage. Fresh off his graduation party.
Job's done.
Now Fr0zen, even if he draws Truce over Champion, has to take a lot of damage. Elven Archer is the draw here.
Crystal Smith Kangor plus Flash of Light. He wants to draw something to combo with its quality. Maybe even that 1 copy of Shrink Ray. A deadly shot. I mean, to kill the Crystal Smith Kangor means to reduce the options for Fr0zen to heal and also remove a little bit of board presence too.
Yeah, you still push 11. So bringing Fr0zen down to 15. He's got the second deadly shot in hand, so it's not like... It's also hard to isolate a good target. Like, Ziliax is the best target.
Fr0zen needs his second Pyromancer or that Elven Archer. Or a timeout. That's not going to do anything. He could heal again.
There's plenty to go around.
Gonna be 2 cards drawn, and if he plays the 3rd one, then Rat Trap will spawn.
Timeout.
Okay, timeout Ziliax. That's a lot of stall.
That's 8 mana.
Well, he can timeout and try and set something up, like timeout Hammer of Wrath, and then follow that up with Ziliax. Or a quality Consecration.
Not after 9 more damage is being dealt. This Hyena has been going in. True Silver Champion finally makes his way to the hand. So it's a timeout.
True Silver and a hit face. Oh.
Greedy. Novice first, I guess, in case that changes the play. He's going to gain 3 life if he does this, but then Amnesiac has that mark shot or deadly shot. Guess deadly shot's a lot worse because it has a 50% chance of doing nothing. The mark shot here is massive, and Amnesiac knows that there's another Unleash the Beast. That's why he's trying to save his resources to try to go for that Equality Consecration setup. This mark shot, though, is going to be very nice. It's only a 1-of, so it's hard to always play around that. Dire Frenzy is really good on the Wyvern, but you also have the Animal Companion possibilities.
Yeah. The Wyvern does have Rush, so when you draw it, it can attack the minions, but it doesn't have that much value. Honestly, like, Weaving and Hero Powers has merit here as well.
Or you can go for the Huffer. Huffer plus the Timberwolf.
Yeah, Huffer plus Timberwolf would be 11.
Yep, put your opponent down to 1 hero power range.
But if you don't get Huffer, that's a 1 out of 3. If you get Misha, you didn't weave in a hero power. So you're being less efficient with damage.
Yeah, this is guaranteed damage.
Yeah.
Oh, now Fr0zen is down to 5 life.
And he's used a lot of healing already. He's used Ziliax, Crystal Smith Kangor, and both of his Flash of Light. So his healing that's left in the deck is just the minimal healing from True Silver and just straight up Shirvala, which is still at 15 cost.
Go down to 8 if he uses timeout here. Quality, a guarantee. Silver Champion.
Oh.
Want to risk it for the biscuit. Fr0zen, unafraid.
I think he realized he's going to have to take a risk sometime, so he might as well take it when he knows that Amnesiac has the least amount of cards.
Kill command is lethal.
So is Huffer.
Lethal. And then Amnesiac, let's say he doesn't get Huffer, he just has the ability to pass and his opponent's in the same position because he's at 7 life still. So hero power here means that Fr0zen's still within lethal range and he still has to react. Okay, Unleash the Beast developing onto the board.
Yeah, so kill command is still an out because he has the cheap beast in his hand. So he says, quality's gone, I might as well build up the biggest board to try and make sure that I have something in case he has timeout. Because there's only 1 equality. Oh, no, there's 2 qualities. Only 1 Shrink Ray, sorry.
Fr0zen can do a nice little nifty trick of timeout first before he takes any damage from the weapon.
Yep. If he's playing timeout, he could also play more than... He can play into the Rat Trap.
Yep, true.
Now, it would still rely on him drawing a quality. Okay. So now, can feel free to play 3 cards, get the Rat Trap out.
Yeah. So now he's... is Fr0zen's best way to win is to go for the shuffle with the Shirvala and the Hope, the all-in. So you time out again next turn, and then Fr0zen shuffles in Shirvala and tries to go for the 25 no matter how many cards remain in his deck.
Yeah. He could also Shirvala and Baleful Banker and just wait for second Shirvala to go for that because it would be a big health swing.
Right.
And he'd get up to like 16 health because he also has 2 health banked up from the True Silver Champion.
That's true. He has Pyro quality timeout next turn.
Yeah. He also has, or he could go a quality Consecration, Shirvala, or not Shirvala. It would be free, but then he can go like Hero Power and then have Wild Pyromancer for the Shrink Ray that's still left in his deck.
It's true. He doesn't actually even have to time out in this turn. He could just he could a quality clear of some capacity here with Wild Pyromancer or Consecration, and then just draw cards.
Let me think.
Yeah.
Wow. I actually starting to see a strong possibility here that Fr0zen still takes this game.
Yeah, I think there's a very good possibility. The one turn where he took the risk of not playing timeout gave him this time, because now he has multiple turns
Oh my gosh.
to try and buy.
Hold on. He swapped places with the Acolyte Pain with the Holy Wrath, so now he has the opportunity of doing the real dirty.
Yeah, he has he has a guaranteed lethal with 2 cards left in it, like with one card. Yeah, with 1 card left in his deck. He doesn't have to wait for an empty deck.
Now, the way Amnesiac can counter that is if he has life gain himself, which he does to the Vicious Scalehide or Zul'jin Armor.
Vicious Scalehide's not that great, though. His maximum is like 3 healing for the Vicious Scalehide because of double Timberwolf. He's already used both of his Dire Frenzies.
He's going for it. Wants to draw. Good thing he got the timeout off. Imagine if he didn't.
Ooh.
Another Wyvern.
So he's got Shrink Ray, Prismatic Lens, and Crystology left in his deck, and a Baleful Banker.
And a second Baleful Banker, yeah.
So 1 Baleful Banker, 1 Crystology, Shrink Ray, and Prismatic Lens, I think?
Yeah, Amnesiac's thinking about how if it's worth developing any further into the board when he knows that there's like a strong possibility of an equality play or shrink ray play. So it feels kind of moot to send more beasts to their death.
I wonder.
There's already a rat, a bear, and a wyvern on board. What else do you want? 4/4 or 5/5 and 6/6. So now Fr0zen can go for the heal play.
Is there? No, there's not.
If he wants to be safe from a double kill command setup, he would have to heal his turn.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if he's not afraid of it, he could just go for a Pyromancer clear with equality or equality consecration and just attack. The advantage of the Wild Pyromancer equality play is that he could also have room to play Prismatic Lens and draw another card from his deck. Alternatively, I'm also seeing the possibility of Shirvala plus Blessing of Wisdom.
Yeah, I was thinking if there's like some weird guaranteed lethal here with Shirvala Blessing of Wisdom, because you Shirvala Blessing of Wisdom, draw a card, and then you can still Baleful Banker, Holy Wrath. I don't know if he feels like he has to go for it now, because he draw 1 card. If he draws the second Baleful Banker, no.
It's time to test your metal.
Okay. Fr0zen gets off the heal and the combo just barely in time. Whew. I thought he missed it for a second.
He didn't look too satisfied with that play, though. That's the weird part. And now Prismatic Lens is kind of awkward because he can't Prismatic Lens until he draws Shirvala or Baleful Banker. Because if no. Yeah. Well, it depends what the rest of his cards in his deck are. Yeah, because if Baleful Banker costs 5, no, he can still do it if Baleful Banker costs 5. Because of the Shrink Ray still in the deck. And Shirvala would get the discount. So no, he can still do it. He can still do it.
I wonder.
Yeah, this is a tough spot here for Amnesiac now because I think he's so far away from killing Fr0zen because of that Shirvala bounce. And, you know, I kind of thought that Amnesiac would have to put in the pressure, but not having that extra damage from hand. Always going for a 50% chance to snipe the Shirvala. Doesn't get it. That's bad news.
Yeah.
And I think Fr0zen should be able to close it out from here. Prismatic Lens just draws the Shirvala for 0. And he has it next turn guaranteed. So all he has to do is to not die. Shrink rate costing 25 is pretty annoying.
Yeah, I mean, he can attack with the True Silver into the Scavenging Hyena, Elven Archer, and then Shirvala down the Wyvern.
But then he loses to Zul'jin.
Yeah. No, he doesn't, because he'd Consecration.
Oh,
He'd go to,
okay.
He'd go to
Yeah.
25. So that clears off the board. He gains 9 health, so he goes up to 23, but takes 5, so it goes down to 18. I don't think he's going to die from 18.
Oh, wait, no. This buffs the, you know. I guess that doesn't really matter, because still Consecration at this point still feels safe.
That wasn't.
Yeah, it took extra damage, but I don't think it's that of a big consequence. Fr0zen also should not hero power here. That kill command, that was a few draws way too late. And Amnesiac knows that he is dead.
He's going to play it out, because there's a chance that a weird chance that Fr0zen would never put himself in the position of if the spell that he drew from Prismatic Lens was Holy Wrath.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility.
That would cost 25, but that's the only situation.
Right, but I think that's like knowing Fr0zen was sloppy enough as a player to play Prismatic Lens in that situation, where you're not supposed to.
Yeah. But then he saw Fr0zen take more damage than he should have.
Right.
The other turn, so you're going to play it out anyway.
I mean, those are micro mistakes. Playing Prismatic Lens when you have Holy Wrath and Shirvala in your deck is a giant macro mistake, which I don't think Fr0zen will make. But Amnesiac plays it out just to make sure Fr0zen has it. That's going to be a 1-0 lead for the Paladin. And Hunter's struggles continue.
I'm out of cards.
Yeah, I mean, there was some very close moments. Like, Amnesiac did have a chance that game with a 1-3 lethal if he had gotten Huffer. But that's just kind of Fr0zen willingly taking the risk. He had the chance to play around it, but he knew that if he had played timeouts that early on in the game without a real way to get his combo going, he probably would have lost in the long term. So he said, well, if I have to take a risk at one point in this game, it might as well be now when my opponent has the least amount of chances to punish me early on. So very well navigated. And like you said, one little micro mistake at the end, took an extra damage, but almost, I'm pretty sure, impossible for him to lose, because there was no, it would have to be like, he plays both of his animal companions, gets Huffer on both, and both Dire Frenzy's going to the Huffer, 14.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't think he gets the job done.
And I mean, Amnesiac also had chances for lethal, too, throughout the entire game.
Absolutely.
So just wasn't able to get it, and maybe that ends up smoothing out over the course of the series, but we'll see how both players choose to tech going into games 2 and 3. So don't go anywhere. More best of 3 Hearthstone Grandmaster actions when we return.
Welcome to Hearthstone Masters. Today, we're going to share one of the biggest changes coming to Hearthstone in 2019, an entirely new competitive format called Specialist. Specialist will be the default competitive format for Hearthstone Masters. From online Masters qualifiers to live Masters Tour events to the pinnacle of competition, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Ready to learn how the new Specialist format works? Let's dive right in. In this new competitive format, players select 3 30-card decks to bring to a Specialist tournament. The catch? All decks must be from the same class. In this regard, Specialist is a major departure from most other competitive formats. Amongst every player's 3 Specialist decks, one is designated as the primary deck. The player's other 2 decks are designated as secondary and tertiary decks. There are no special limitations placed on a player's primary deck aside from regular Hearthstone deck construction rules. However, a player's secondary and tertiary decks must share at least 25 cards in common with their primary deck. In other words, secondary and tertiary decks must mirror the primary deck with up to 5 cards swapped out. It is important to point out that duplicate cards count when comparing to a primary deck. For example, if you want to include 2 copies of Twilight Drake in your secondary deck, and there are no copies of Twilight Drake in your primary deck, then you must spend 2 swaps to include both cards. Unique or not, if a card isn't in your primary deck, it counts towards the 5-card difference limit. A player's primary deck is important for another reason. Whenever a new match starts, both its players must begin by piloting their primary deck. Only after the first game concludes can you choose to swap into your secondary or tertiary deck. You do not announce which of your decks you will be using in the next game, and you do not have to swap. After every game, this process repeats, allowing players to swap or stay until the match concludes. Importantly, you can swap to any of your decks between games, primary, secondary, or tertiary, including returning to your primary deck if you have previously swapped out of it. And those are all the rules for Specialists, Hearthstone's new official competitive format. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start brewing your own primary, secondary, and tertiary decks to get a jump start on the new format and innovate like the pros.
Let the battle begin!
Welcome everyone to the Hearthstone Grandmasters. We are in the middle of the series between Fr0zen and Amnesiac, as Fr0zen's up 1-0 currently with his Paladin deck. Amnesiac still playing his mid-range hunter. He's going to switch to his tertiary deck, which he only opted to change 3 cards, 2 Life Drinkers and Stranglethorn Tiger. And then Fr0zen choosing to play his tertiary deck, but he has 3 cards as well, which is Youthful Brewmaster, High Priest the Call, and True Silver Champion.
Yep.
So better anti-aggro options. So for example, taking out Blessing of Wisdom and Hammer of Wrath, which are a little bit more fragile, soft ways to deal with aggressive decks. And then having a Youthful Brewmaster to bounce back, like a Shirvallah, for example, High Priest the Call, so that way you can get 3 mana 3/4 and maybe heal beyond 30, and then choose a champion.
Yeah, it's I don't think ideal for this situation, because High Priest is the call. It's good against the kind of the decks that want to burst you out because you can go above 30. The Youthful Brewmaster, though, I really like, because in the last game, Fr0zen was in a situation where he wanted to play a Shirvallah early and then shuffled a Shirvallah into his deck. What Youthful Brewmaster does is, when you want to do that, when you don't need the more than 25 damage with double Holy Wrath to kill your opponent, it allows you to use the second Shirvallah instantly to gain a huge burst of healing. And still have the ability to shuffle into your deck should you need it later in the stage of the game. Now, Amnesiac, the Life Drinkers, I think, could be key.
Yes, it helps him get over that specific life total that he's afraid of with the Holy Wrath damage. And then maybe that forces Fr0zen to a spot where he has to be a little bit more conservative with his burst, like has to keep the True Silver equipped. And even then, Fr0zen might not have enough damage. So it comes down to whether or not Amnesiac can mount that pressure, but more importantly, can he also delicately balance developing onto the board while also not letting Fr0zen have any opportunity to be greedy, because Fr0zen did a really good job last game identifying the pockets where he could afford to take a risk. And yes, he did have to fade like a kill command, and yes, he had to make sure that the opponent didn't get like Huffer off of it. But at the same time, that's the risk you got to take if the matchup is poised against you.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know if the Stranglethorn Tiger will help Amnesiac as much, because there's not really targeted removal. It's more like wide board shred removal. So it's not going to dodge your quality or shrink ray. But just having another big threat in the mid game. It's like an Unleash the Beast, effectively, for what Amnesiac used in the last game and what he cut from his tertiary deck that comes out a turn sooner, is how you can look at it. So definitely some positive inclusions. I think Amnesiac may gain a little more than Fr0zen gains by switching to tertiary deck.
Right.
But like we saw last game, it's going to come down to kind of those very thin margins that we saw in the mid game, where Fr0zen was just trying to dodge lethal blows for a few turns before he could stabilize.
Yep. Stranglethorn Tiger Life Drinkers are much needed 4 and 5 mana cost minions. There's no 4 cost minions in this entire deck. It's just Dire Frenzies and Mark Shots. Those are all spells. Tundra Rhino is not exactly a curve minion all the time. You can play it on curve, and sometimes you really do because you need to pressure your opponents. But this just gives Amnesiac more options. Amnesiac starts off with the possibility of having Zul'jin in the hand, which is a pessimistic view of the matchup. If you keep Zul'jin, you're saying, I think the game is going to go long enough where I might need Zul'jin. If you throw away Zul'jin, you're saying, I think that I'll win way before turn 10. He's on the play, too, which is fairly relevant, so that way he has to increase his chances to get a Shimmerflight or a Spring Paw to curve out. And you might think that's just one damage here and there, but it does really add up. And it looks like Amnesiac understands, I'm a hunter. I need to go aggressive and go face here.
Master's Call.
It's a card he was lacking last game.
Yeah. In fact, both players were kind of lacking a little bit in the they were like kind of highest win rate card category, where Fr0zen is pretty much hard mulling for like Crystology, where Amnesiac, not hard mulling, but Master's Call is pretty much what makes the deck tick, because you run out of resources otherwise a lot of the time. So
I think Fr0zen did have Crystology last game.
he had one Crystology,
Right.
but still, you're hard mulliganing for that. You're not upset if you get two.
Yeah.
Especially with Fr0zen, because he's got kind of the redundancy. He's got Acolyte of Pain, Soup Vendor, Double Novice Engineer, Crystal Smith Kangor, and Elven Archer. So a lot. He's got the redundancy of the one attack minions, so that Crystology has a better chance to be active later into the game, which is something that we talked about a little bit in the last game.
Job done.
Amnesiac setting up that Rat Trap. The Rat Trap is obviously going to have minimal impact. The idea is just to lock Fr0zen out of playing more than 2 cards for a while. Not that he really could, but this Dire Frenzy setup is also Amnesiac's way to pressure his opponent in case he didn't have an answer to the Hyena either. So then the Dire Frenzy, if it comes down, Amnesiac has a chance to draw that with the Master's Call, and then be able to put on more pressure as the game continues to develop.
Yeah. Now, it does get answered by the True Silver Champion, but Fr0zen's forced to take more damage, and it's kind of banking on it, like you said, for the Master Call. Now, he has added just more beasts into his deck, so it's a lower chance. So now he has Scavenging Game, he has Timberwolf, he has Shimmerfly, he has Life Drinker, Stranglethorn Tiger, and Tundra Rhino. So 7 beasts, I think, I counted. And he can also just draw the second Spring Paw, which is not buffed.
That Tundra Rhino draw is also so big for Amnesiac, because now all these one mana 4/4s are going to have charge, which complicates Fr0zen's math, because when you're playing a combo deck that tries to barely stay alive and teeter on the edge, damage from hand is what's really scary. And when you factor in Dire Frenzy, it becomes very difficult to weigh in on everything. That being said, if you want to grab board, Spring Paw here as a 4/4 is still pretty solid. Squeezing in every little bit of damage, though.
Yep.
I mean, that was what was making Amnesiac short last game, right? He was just short a little bit of damage. If he was able to weave in a couple more hero powers, maybe he wouldn't have to rely on like a Huffer situation. Seems like an opportunity for Fr0zen to get some of his more tricky cards out of his hand, like Ziliax.
I don't know if I consider Ziliax that much of a tricky card.
It's just expensive, I guess.
It is expensive, but also the healing is quite valuable. But outside of Deadly Shot, which Fr0zen has the Novice Engineer to kind of protect it from the possibility of a Deadly Shot, it is hard to remove without giving Fr0zen that additional healing. So if Fr0zen's able to go back up to 30 because of this Ziliax, which it honestly looks like he'll be able to, then, hey, mana efficiency and healing efficiency.
Yeah, and I like that. You know, I was probably thinking about playing Hammer of Wrath or Crystology instead.
Yeah.
But this is much more mana efficient, and like because of the pocket that it's able to spot, it's very nice. I think Amnesiac already has resigned himself to the fact that it's most likely that this Ziliax is going to heal Fr0zen back up to health anyways, pop the Divine Shield. Second True Silver Champion here for Fr0zen, so his tertiary deck might reveal its head right now. And it does if he ends up playing that True Silver Champion. Remember, Fr0zen doesn't want to play more than 2 cards. He could play Hammer of Wrath to cycle, which is also a possibility.
Yeah, I think setting up the True Silver Champion's better here, though, because it gives you better reach next turn to fight for the board with Hammer of Wrath and the True Silver Champion, instead of just kind of quote-unquote wasting.
Dude, Master's Call again. So if he's able to assemble 3 Spring Paws that all have 4 attack, plus a Timberwolf, plus Tundra Rhino, how much damage is that?
12, 13, 14, 15, plus 3, 18.
Plus the Timberwolf is 19.
No, I counted the Timberwolf. 12, 13, 14. That's the Timberwolf is 15, plus 8. Or plus 3, it's 18.
It's definitely not enough.
I mean, 18 is still a lot, though.
So maybe if it's a lot. So he picks up another Spring Paw. Life Drinker helps close that distance a little bit. The Life Drinker in this position isn't particularly effective. It doesn't really do that much except, you know, put a little bit of board presence on. So the maximum damage that Amnesiac can do with this hand is still in the mid-teens.
To me.
Now, if he gets a Timberwolf Dire Frenzy, now all bets are off.
Yeah, Timberwolf Dire Frenzy is like the late game combo dream.
Yes, but often I don't think you have time. The Paladin cycles way more aggressively than, say, Warrior, which is where the Timberwolf Dire Frenzy is probably like the go-to, right?
Yep.
It looks like he's just going to get the damage in now.
Yeah, this is 13, 14 damage. He has Kill Command and Life Drinkers. So
you were right. It was 19 damage before. I only counted 2 Spring Paws for some reason. Sorry, it was a callback, but
yeah, no,
don't want to leave myself incorrect, Dan. You're probably thinking over there, wow, this TJ guy's an idiot. It's 19, but I don't want to call him out like that.
Nah, TJ,
I figured it out for
you are
myself,
far
Dan.
Smarter than I could ever be. I could ever hope to be. Fr0zen has the clear here, and I think at 14 life he's still okay, or 14 effective life. He could choose not to attack. He is dead to a double kill command with Lynxes, though. So if he had quality consecrations here, it seems like a pretty nice and easy board wipe.
Mm-hmm.
Double consecration is unlikely. Did I say double consecration? Double kill command is unlikely. But he does know that the Lynxes are in the hand, so
Must move quickly.
Amnesiac 1 out of 16 to end the game next turn if Fr0zen doesn't attack with his weapon.
Trading off the minion first to play around the possibility of Unleash the Hounds.
Yes, that does make sense too.
Saw Life Drinkers, which means he knows that both copies of Unleash the Hounds are still in the deck.
Well, Amnesiac has that Life Drinker set up into the kill command the following turn. So Life Drinker here, Lynx plus Scavenging Hyena is
7 mana, so you can fit in a hero power.
Yep, let's put your opponent down to 9.
Have a 3/3, a 4/3 a play.
Yeah, stuff like this is why I feel like Hunter still is favored against the Paladin, but I mean, Fr0zen's doing a great job staying alive and still keeping his options open.
Yeah.
That being said, this is still kind of a scary push because he might be forced to burn a timeout here.
Now, he does still have Crystal Smith Kangor plus both flashlights, I believe, which means that with timeout and that amount of healing, he can buy himself a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. It's true. He does have Pyro and Equality as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not even need Pyromancer Equality. He could also just Equality and, like, Elven Archer.
Yeah, and he could go use this as an opportunity, like he did last game, to proc the Rack Trap during the timeout turn.
Oh yeah, the Rat Trap is actually the big complication here.
Yeah. So if he wants to play 3 cards, then he kind of has to timeout.
Right.
Unless those 3 cards involve like Wild Pyromancer plus 2 more cards plus Equality, which is 9 mana. It's very hard to do.
Ooh, Crystology.
It does pick up Soup Bender.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It just needs to get deeper into his deck.
And Novice Engineer, second Novice Engineer as well.
Quickly.
Vended some soup.
Now we're back in that same position. Amnesiac can shut down the life gain through the Deadly Shot, set up a Rat Trap, but has his window closed. Has Fr0zen drawn too many cards? Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I feel like the Paladin is like just generally very good against Hunter.
Well,
I don't feel like the data backs that statement up.
I feel like you can snowball a lot more than Amnesiac has in these last few games as Hunter. Also, I feel like this Holy Wrath Paladin deck is actually
I wonder.
surprisingly difficult to play. Like even us, like we've been suggesting plays or calling out plays, and then the player does the opposite. I kind of call back to just Saiyans match yesterday where he was playing timeouts very early on in the game.
He had like full life, and there's like a giant on the board. He's like, timeout.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
What? And then he wins. Like, it's kind of hard to spot.
And it was like the right play.
Yeah, it's about using your mana efficiently and kind of spacing out your resources. Sure, timeout early if you know that that's going to buy you time to find more removal. And keeping your life total high against the mage proved to be a very valuable thing.
I hope you like my
And
invention.
just saying, cruise to that 2-0 yesterday because of it.
Fr0zen going for the Elven
One shot,
Archer,
one
Pyromancer.
Oh,
So they can
procs
get-
a second Rat Trap.
Yeah, just so you can activate in full clear. It's very clever, I like it. Now Amnesiac has to start over from ground zero. Timberwolf and Dire Frenzy, but
No Master's Calls left. No Tundra Rhinos left.
yep.
So he basically has to stick a board, attack with that board, and draw kill commands in order to win. Which is a tall task.
Yeah, we're definitely going to hero power, but I think with a second Pyrogon and another Equality Gon, I think Amnesiac just has to go all in now. Problem is that he also knows that Fr0zen's on 0 mana Shirvala. And this is not the buff Spring Paw. That is rough.
Kind of all in here.
Oh, just kidding. The second Pyromancer was in the previous game. This is the second Pyromancer.
Yes, it is.
Misremembered.
Do you like to play with fire?
Fr0zen, utilizing Holy Wrath fairly liberally, gets the opponent down to 20 life, so still very well within that range. And Amnesiac sees that you throw Brewmaster. That's most likely going to lock it up here. There is that possibility of Amnesiac drawing Zul'jin to try and climb back in.
Okay.
Here comes the
It still only brings him to 25, so he's not out of range. And he doesn't have any healing left in the deck with both life triggers used already.
Yeah, but the thing is, he doesn't actually have like any Beast to Dire Frenzy and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that ends up being a waste, and the Rat Trap setup is okay.
Yeah, he just drew cards. That's it.
Yeah, and he's still not
I'm
outside the
almost
range
out
of
of
damage. Is this actually lethal? No, it's 1 mana off.
He didn't have any minions left in his deck. But he will just set up the timeout here, and that's a checkmate scenario. And Amnesiac has no way to heal back up.
He does have the Vicious Scale Hide, but he doesn't have Dire Frenzy.
No, he cut the only Vicious
Oh, you're right.
Hide
He took it out.
to make room for the life triggers, and he's used both.
Wait, can you kill something with the Shimmerfly?
I don't think there's anything.
Arrow. I mean, it's a good card, just not really what he needs right here at this very moment. He can try again with a kill command. Kill command is Shimmerfly, but I think it's just wishful thinking.
There's no secrets that can do anything, because like misdirection doesn't do a darn thing. Rapid fire.
And unless I'm missing something, Fr0zen has the guaranteed lethal here with the Holy Wrath and the Shrivalis shuffle in. As an easy 2-0, Paladin once again getting another victory here in week number 2. And Hunter's struggles continues. That is the 9th defeat for Hunter in Grandmasters so far with only 3 victories.
Yeah. Now, I do think that Hunter overall was a decent bring for Amnesiac. I just don't think that he or many other players were expecting Holy Wrath Paladin. And honestly, I don't even think that matchup is as bad as it looked right there.
Well, it's favored in the data, and it makes sense in theory because the way the combo deck struggle is pressure, overwhelming pressure, and Hunter is a deck that can do that. Perhaps it's because Amnesiac's draw was a little bit awkward at times, or perhaps Fr0zen had the more fortunate draw, or I don't really sense any weak plays from Amnesiac overall. No. So I feel like it could either come down to deck building, it could also come down to the draws, or perhaps there's something else that we're missing here. But I gotta say, Fr0zen played that series exceptionally.
Yeah, and you can tell that a lot of practice on the deck. I mean, this is a hard deck to bring without kind of knowing like the nuance to the deck. There's like a couple of key mistakes that you make with the deck that can like really punish you and lose you games. So you have to know and have iterations on to get out of the way. Mostly with like prismatic lens shenanigans, right? You know, drawing a key card that you swap to 25. That's a big one. Like being too mana inefficient in the early game can punish you in the late game because of hand size. So a couple key things like that where once you get reps on, you get experience. But yeah, exceptional play from Fr0zen, and now I think Holy Wrath Paladin's 2-1.
It's 2-1. Race lost yesterday after some pretty funny highlights. But,
yes.
We'll talk to Fr0zen real quick, who's able to get his win with Paladin on the board here. Fr0zen, are you on the line?
Yep. Hey, what's up?
Awesome. Well, good win. Really nice macro play. Maybe like 1 or 2 very small missteps, but not a really big deal. How do you feel overall about the strength of Paladin in your play today?
This was actually a secret deck that we kept, me and Doc. We were gonna bring it super later down the line, but the nerfs, the new buffs that are gonna be announced at like May, we were gonna save this for Vegas, but we had to bring it out early because obviously the meta is gonna be completely different. And I'm happy with my lineup against certain decks, but I didn't really expect both of my opponents to not play Mage. So my first deck kind of is a little bit worse than it could have been, and I don't think I tacked my third deck as good as I could versus Hunter, but I'm surprised that not that many people have played Paladin because we thought that it was really strong overall, especially since the stats don't really show how good the deck is.
Yeah,
I like
that's what we were talking about.
yeah. I like how you said you and Dog.
Who once again
But Dog brought
disagreed
Bomb
and
Warrior this week. So did he think that other people would bring it, and he's like, I'm going to bring Warrior and just outpace him?
I think he wasn't very comfortable with the deck, and he wasn't 100% sure that his opponents were going to play Mage. And we had like the Geppetto Bomb Warrior lineup that I also thought about bringing with him, and I was just more confident with Paladin.
Yeah, how's your practice going along? Because I know Dog said that he didn't get to practice much, but it seems like he is preparing at least with you. So, kind of wanted to see like where your head's at in terms of preparing for Specialists and Grandmasters.
Yeah, we don't really practice matches. We just practice in like theories and like talk about decks and how they go. Maybe we do some ladder matches. I did some specific like Hunter matches because I wasn't really sure how they were gonna go, and they went terrible in practice. So, I was also doing a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't do in a real game, like making like strange plays just for different setups. Mm-hmm. Also, these decks, shout out to Chinese scene. These decks are from TG, and I really like how they tech the decks.
Wait, so clarify one thing. This is our last question here, Fr0zen. So you said in practice the Hunter was like doing really well, but you were also testing out strange plays. So in the end, do you feel the matchup leans one way or the other?
I think it's a pretty close 50-50. Maybe after swap I get a little bit ahead, but the first game probably slightly behind. And then after tech I get a little bit better.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting insight there. Cool. Any questions, TJ, for Fr0zen before we let it go?
I kind of saw your tweet about the Elven Archer, and you gave a shout out to the Chinese scene. You gave a short explanation on Twitter, but I just want to hear kind of from your own words, and maybe there's another interaction. What's the Elven Archer all about?
It just sets up a bunch of things very nicely, and then there's a problem with pinging stuff off with this deck because you run the double qualities, and Elven Archer helps with that. In early game, a lot of times your 1/1s don't actually contest, and then Elven Archer helps ping it off. Also, 1 mana allows you to dump cards. One of the biggest problems with the deck is that your hand is always full.
Oh yeah, we know.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yesterday
Race knows
Race
very well.
knows really well. And then also having a 1-mana minion for the prismatic lens cheese shreds are really valuable. It's like something that people don't really think too much about when they're building out the deck, but the prismatic lens stuff is clutch. Anyways, well done. Lots of cool plays from you this entire series, and good luck in your next match later this weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, so Fr0zen, another win. He is 3-0 overall in Grandmasters, a player that maybe have gone under the radar because he took a little bit of a brief hiatus to cast and organize tournaments for a year after his 2017 campaign. But very much, every player respects his technical ability and is just straight up intelligence. He's one of the smartest dudes that if you ever talk to him, just very sharp.
Absolutely.
And analytical about everything. That brings us to our last match for the second day. So hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. Coming up next, we have Firebat versus Bloodyface. This is a matchup that's going to be Warrior versus Mage, but Bloodyface very convinced that Warrior's favored if you just play it correctly. So we'll find out who's correct right after this. Don't go anywhere.